Hello and welcome to another video by Gardening with Jason. We're down the plot again. It's been a while, things have been busy, it's been a difficult year for us all, and as you can see, the weeds have absolutely loved it. I don't know about you, but the May here was very wet, and unfortunately the weeds have kind of got away with themselves and escaped. However, stuff has grown, stuff is doing well. And it's been a touch and go year, I will admit. Things like beans, I haven't had much success with runner beans this year, but the potatoes have done very well. I've got some gooseberries over there that have done well, onions have done fantastically well, but some other things just really haven't grown particularly well. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a catch up and see what's going on. You can admire my collection of weeds. This one, by the way, is a weed, I think it's called Fat Hen. I have written a book all about weeds, and it's one of the edible weeds. It's a weed we used to eat before the cultivated crops we rely on today. And there's all sorts of weeds growing on here at the moment. Now let's start by talking about potatoes. If you planted potatoes earlier in the year, they're likely to be ready to be harvested. Now these here are first earlies, and you can see that they're starting to die back a little bit here. If I just take one of these leaves off, you can see it's starting to die a little, and basically they all need lifting. Now what you can do with first earlies is as soon as they flower you can start harvesting them, which I have been doing. Behind me there's half a row where I have harvested them and dug them up, and I'm still eating them. Unfortunately, as you will find out, it takes quite a while to eat potatoes. Leave them on the soil, top of the soil, for a couple of hours once you've harvested them. Let them dry a little, and then you can use them. First earlies don't store particularly well, so they will store for a little while, but not a massive amount of time. So try and get them eaten as soon as you can. So I'm probably going to dig some of these up where the tops are dying back. Now normally what I would do is I would cut the tops off and leave these ones in the ground, but because of the weeds I'm a bit wary about doing that. I have got some markers where I planted them. You see I've got some row markers here, but even so, with the way the weeds are, I'd be a bit wary, because I'll tell you some more about that in a minute. But if we go over onto this side, so if we look on this side, these are main crop potatoes, and you can see these haven't started flowering yet. The flowers, looking at them, are just about starting to form. Main crop potatoes are harvested when the tops start to die back, and you can see these are nowhere near ready yet. Once they start to die back, cut the leaves off. Don't put the leaves on your compost. Any potato waste should not go on your compost because of the risk of blight and other infections. Bag it and take it home to your recycling, or burn it, or something like that. Just do not compost it, because there is a risk of disease transference. Cut the tops off for 2 weeks when they're ready. Cut the tops off, leave the potatoes in the ground for about 2 weeks. This gives the tubers then sort of a protective skin forms on them, so they store better. And then what you can do after that is dig them up, leave them on the soil surface for a few hours in a sunny day, and then store them in a cool dark place in paper bags or Hessian sacks. Personally, I use potato bags from places like McDonald's and other takeaways. They give you your food in a big paper bag, and I just use those, and I find them really good. So these are the main crop potatoes. Now interestingly, let's just get rid of this weed. What happened when I took over this plot, there was a lot of potatoes planted, particularly over here. What I found out is I've had what I call volunteer potatoes. I think everyone calls them those. And volunteer potatoes are basically potatoes that come up from ones left in the ground from last year. And what I've noticed this year is that the volunteer potatoes that come up all seem to be a bit weak and pathetic. You can see this is sort of, the leaves are yellowed, and they're the ones that seem to have had all the problems. So what I'd recommend is, if you have any volunteer potatoes left, dig them up and get them out of the ground as soon as you can, so that you can get rid of them. Because they're where the risk of disease is the highest, and it could potentially cause problems for your other potatoes. So try and dig up all the potatoes you can, but obviously we all leave bits in the ground, and then just get rid of the volunteer potatoes as and when they come through the ground. If you pull them up straight away, they're quite easy to get rid of. Now in the greenhouse we've got quite a few tomato plants. I've moved them all down here, and you can see that they're doing alright. We've got some flowers, there are some tomatoes forming on some of them, and they're doing alright. I have got some couple of chili plants in here. Unfortunately these haven't been very happy. They were at home and they seem to become very upset there, so I've moved them down here, and while they've dropped some of their leaves they do seem to have perked up a little. But the problem here with the tomatoes is obviously it's very, very, very hot, and they're drying out. So what I've done is, you see down there, I pretty much used anything I can get my hands on just to put at the base so that they can sit in a little bit of water and I can water them more, so the water doesn't just pour through the pot, they have some water during the day. At the moment I'm down here twice a day watering these, and they are thriving because of it. They need a bit of spacing, but I have put some outdoors over there, as you can see. Just over here, I'll just pick one. You can see I've got some red gooseberries. These are absolutely delicious because they're the red ones. These are actually sweet enough to eat straight off the bush, and they are very, very nice. But I just wanted to show you here, you can see on this one the leaves have been stripped. That's probably gooseberry sawfly. Now I've not had this plot very long, so I'm obviously not very aware of what's on here and what isn't. But one thing that I'm told works against gooseberry sawfly is to put rhubarb leaves at the base of your plants. So once I've cleared the space, you can see we've got a little bug there. Once I've cleared the space, I'm going to try that at the end of the season. Let's see what we can do. I don't know if you can see, it's a black and yellow ladybird wandering around there. But anyway, this area here is a bit of a mess. You can see there's some gooseberries, some raspberries, there's blackcurrants in there. It all needs sorting out and spacing out because everything's growing in each other's ways, which is making life a little bit difficult. Now, one thing you can do at this time of year with your trees, now this is a pear tree, and bizarrely enough, I don't think I can see a single pear on this tree this year. No idea why, but you can see here, there's some dead tree, some dead branches, and now there's another one just up here. You can see another one there, no leaves on it. So this is actually quite a good time of year to go around your trees and to cut off all these bits and pieces. So here's another one, another dead branch. So you can prune these right back and get rid of them, and then you've got a healthier tree next year. But now's probably the best time to do it. Now looking at the pears on this tree, you can see some of them have got these markings on them, and this one here has what appears to be some sort of scab. I don't know what that is, so I'm going to have to look this up and try and work it out. But there are some pears on this tree. It's not a massive amount, but there are some. But if we go over here, you can see there's some very nice looking apples there on that tree, which I'm very excited about. This tree, unfortunately, if I come back here a little, you can see it's at a bit of a funny angle. It's obviously got blown over by the wind at some point and has grown this way. So I'm trying to straighten it up. I put a post underneath it, and I'm going to gradually pull it upwards in the hope that I can level it up. Now back to volunteer potatoes. Here you can see yet another example, and then there's another one just over there as well, same thing, where the potatoes have grown from last year where they were left in the ground. Now a lot of these potatoes were harvested before I took on the plot, so unfortunately I didn't know they were here. But I've let these ones grow because there's nothing else in the area at the moment, and then what I'm going to do is, now I can see them, I'll dig them up in a week or two and then just use the potatoes if they're alright. Broad beans have done really, really well, and you can see along here how well they're doing. Now one thing you can do with broad beans is, if you see here, you see the growing tip, this gets infested with black fly. all you need to do is just use, once they get to a decent height and start setting beans, just pinch the end off and get rid of it, and that will discourage the black fly and hopefully stop it from destroying your plant. And you can see sort of just about some of the effects of them on that plant, so we'll get rid of that. But when it comes to harvesting broad beans, start at the bottom of the plant, and you can see these are fairly sort of well swollen. I'll pick one to show you. You can see they're a decent size. Now start at the bottom of the plant and work your way up. Try not to take the leaves off. And you can cut them off with scissors or carefully pull them off, but as I said, be careful not to damage the plant. These can then be blanched and frozen. Try and harvest the beans when they're quite small. You can see the sort of the size of that one. Sort of, it's about thumbnail size. So if you leave them too big, they become a bit tough, harder to eat. This size, they're very, very pleasant. When your broad bean plants are finished, cut them off at the base and then leave the roots in the ground. The roots will fix nitrogen in the ground, which is obviously good for the crop next year. But these are absolutely delicious. You can eat them raw if you want, but there you are, that's your broad beans. Now for the fun part, marrows. This is one of my marrow plants. You can see there's another baby marrow appearing on them. These are doing fantastically well. They're growing sort of half an inch to an inch a day. I'm watering them about every other day at the moment because they're quite well established, and you can see that they're doing okay. And if I come over here, that one here, again you can see sort of length of my hand, it's close to being ready. Give it another sort of week and I'll be picking that. Best way to decide when to pick these, the same with courgettes, is when they're about the size of the ones you buy in the store. Leave courgettes in particular too big and they become quite tough. The seeds become inedible, and you end up scooping out a lot of them. So just try and pick them regularly. Picking them regularly also encourages the production of more fruit, obviously. And if I just get myself around, we can see here this is a pumpkin flower. Can't see any pumpkins setting on those yet, but these vines are starting to escape and get away, which is absolutely brilliant. And again, you can see here, same thing, they're starting to vine out, which is wonderful. Did plant some sunflowers. You can see, if I just go up the top there, not started forming heads yet, but they're already, just with the leaves on, turning to the sun throughout the day, which is actually quite lovely to see. And we go over here, on these leaves you can see bits of sort of water damage. This is from, I'm assuming, where it's got wet at night from the rain, and it's caused a little bit of damage, but you can see there's a yellow courgette, and that's about the right size to eat. The way you pick courgettes, very simple, just give them a twist and they'll come off. That hasn't come off very neatly, probably because I was doing it left-handed, but you can see that's a decent size, about the size of the one you buy in the shop. That's ready to eat. I don't know about you, but we're currently eating courgettes almost every day. There's one there that's not quite ready, but by tomorrow it will be, so can't grumble. And again, more coming up there, so they're doing really, really well. And I've got some celery and beetroot here. The beetroot I've been picking as and when it's ready. And again, this is a plum tree, and I haven't actually looked very closely at it, but I can see some plums on it, but mainly it seems to be infected with flies for some reason. So I'm going to have to sort this one out. This one needs a good prune, because at the base of it here, if I come back over here and look, you can see that the rootstock's coming through. Now the rootstock of this plum tree is slow, and unfortunately that's got big thorns on it. So I'm trying to cut it all back and get this tree under control, but it needs a damn good pruning along the top where it's all basically grown out of control over the last year. And then up here you can see my apple tree, and you can see there, lovely crop of apples coming up on it. So looking forward to that, but again, that needs the top shaving off. It's too tall and too unmanageable. I need the top taken off it, and then I need to get up, and you can see again here, look, you can see loads and loads of dead wood, so that all needs chopping back and removing, so that will be done. And I'm just going to show you the inside of my compost heap. You come around here with me, you can see there, you can see the amount of weeds. That was virtually empty when I started the season, so I've got loads and loads and loads of weeds. And one thing I do like about this plot, and I'll try and capture him sometime, is there's at least 2 robins on this plot that are very, very friendly. I can't catch them right now, but there's actually a blue tip bouncing around in the tree just next to me. But the robins here are very friendly, and what I've discovered is when if I dig an area and move away from it, I turn around and there's a robin sat rooting through the soil, and it's really, really nice. It's quite a lovely feeling, to be honest, to be able to see that and see sort of the wildlife. I have put up a couple of bird feeders. I've not filled them for a little while because there's plenty of other food around, and I want them to eat like the bugs and other things that are knocking around. So they're doing really, really well. And the nice thing is there does seem to be a good ecosystem on this plot. There's plenty of insects, there's plenty of birds, and there's certainly lots of bugs in the soil. So it's all looking really good. So hopefully it's all going very well wherever you are and with what you're growing. But you can see, you know, I think we're, to be fair, I think we're about a month behind on the growing season this year, realistically. May's really, really throwing everything. The weeds have really got away with themselves because of it. But most importantly, I think we have this opportunity to, you know, catch up, and things are really growing well. It's just the big issue at the moment is watering, because it's so dry, and we're spending a lot of time carting water around and keeping the plants alive. But it's all looking very good, and you can see over there the potatoes, and they're looking fantastic. Now, one thing I will show you just before we finish is people often ask me, well, what's a plot look like when I take it on brand new? I was fortunate with this one. It'd been worked by a gentleman who was just working it for fun, and it was in relatively good condition. But typically when you take on an allotment, this is what it looks like. So some of these dandelions, some of these docks here are as tall as me, and you can see, I don't know if you can see on the video, but over the far side there's nettles and brambles. There seems to be some sort of willow tree or something growing up there, and it's just absolutely covered in weeds. There is a shed in the back there, and an apple tree that I'm reliably informed is very, very nice. And I do sort of think that maybe I'll look at asking permission to get some cuttings and graft it onto one of my other trees and see if I can keep it going. But you can see this is full of comfrey, grass and all sorts. And unfortunately, a lot of the time when you take on a plot, this is what it looks like. They are hard work. Unfortunately, plots tend to be abandoned, particularly council-run sites. It can take a year or more before somebody sort of processes the plot and gets somebody new in. And particularly with the pandemic, it's really, really messed things up. And here in particular, it's been about 2 years from what I'm told since this one's actually been worked, purely because the council haven't been able to do anything and can't get down. But you can see, as I said, it looks it looks a lot of a state. It's an awful lot of work to take on. But if you get a plot like this, best thing you can do is hire a strimmer, strim it right down, get rid of all the rubbish, and then cover it, and then start working a bit at a time. But it is hard work. But this is, if you're getting a new allotment, this is what a lot of them look like. So just be warned and be prepared for the work. It is a lot of work, but as I said, for me personally, I think it's very rewarding when it's done. But this is it for today. It's a lovely hot day. I've got a little bit more work to do, and then I'm going to escape before it gets too warm and I get burnt to a crisp. And I'm going to say bye-bye for now, and happy gardening, and get in touch and let me know how you're getting on.